But they run all the time. I think I want to go somewhere.
What's the back of the train?
Hello everyone and welcome to another review from Class 47 Peter, and today, as promised, we are here to look at the Hornby 8F, which I said was going to be the next review in the last review video I did. Now, I have reviewed the Hornby 8F before as well, which you can still find the original review on the channel, which I will also link in the description in case you want to go and watch it whilst during this video or maybe after this video. But you can also still search up on my channel anyway. However, that review was a bit different because this review is going to be in the new format of reviews. Not to mention the fact that in the last review of the 8F I did, it was during the original format, but it was before I had the layout set up, because it was filmed during the time when I first moved into the house that I lived in now, and I didn't have the layout set up then. So all I did was to run the model was to just set up a test track on the floor of my bedroom. Also, that 8F was the L&R version. Well, it was actually called the Class 06, which is what they were classified as when they worked for the L&R, or at least some of them did. And then when they went over to the L&R, they were classified 06s. But it's technically still an 8F, but it's just called an 06 basically. But that was the L&R version. This one is the BR version, which is something I've been meaning to get hold of for a little while. Little story behind this. This model was bought from Footplate Models in Kidderminster. In fact, both 8F models I have both come from Footplate Models in Kidderminster, which is a little bit ironic. This one, however, was a little bit more than the L&R version, which was only about 74 quid. This one, I think I paid something like £87 for it or something, so it was a little bit more expensive. Don't know why, but it just was. But I bought this during the Severn Valley Railways Spring Steam Gala, because I went down into Kidderminster town and just happened to look in the shop window and I saw this on the shelf, and I just had to buy it because the previous day, before I went out to the gala, I had spoke about wanting to get hold of a second 8F in the BR livery, and then coincidentally on the day I went out and went into Kidderminster town, I stumbled upon this in the shop and I just had to buy it. It just had to be done, because I think I would have been a fool not to. Right, but enough of the chit chat. Let's get the box open. So this is Hornby's long obsolete polystyrene finger hole packaging, which I don't really like, to be honest. Sometimes it's hard to get the models out, so there's the risk of breaking detail parts off. But it is a bit more ideal over the plastic packaging that most manufacturers use nowadays. We then take away the card insert. And then we can have a look at the instruction manual for this model. It's all the usual stuff. Lubrication, taking the body off, replacing the motor if you want to. There's nothing about DCC fitting it because the model's not DCC ready, and also there's mention of fitting in brake rods on the back of the instructions. Then we can take the model out. So first we take out the tender, pop it to one side. Then we take out the locomotive. Which both loco and tender are wrapped up in this tissue paper that I don't like. It's not very good stuff to wrap models in, to be honest. Then we put the box to one side, and then we can now get onto the loco and the tender. So first of all, we'll have a look at the locomotive. So we just unwrap the tissue paper from it, and then we can put it in the bin. Right, so the first thing I'm going to talk about, as I normally do, is the weight. As I've said many times before, the weight is important because it needs to have as much weight in it as possible, because if not, this model will not be able to pull anything, and this model does have quite a bit of weight in it, so we're not going to have any problems with this model not pulling anything, because it will be able to pull trains with ease. Moving on to detail, this model has metal sprung buffers, so if you like your sprung buffers then you'll be happy, but for me I don't personally care about them, but they're there. One thing I should point out is that some of the detail parts that you get in the detail bag, that you normally get with the model, have already been added, not by me, because they were already fitted when I bought the model. Someone has added the chain link coupling on the front there, and the brake pipe. They haven't, however, added the front steps or the brake pipe on the tender. This is something I've since sorted out by finding out spare detail parts, but it's not really a major thing, it's just a little thing, but it's just something that I just thought I'd point out, because normally you would see the detail pack in these sorts of videos. So I thought I'd mention that they've already been added. On the running board, as we can see, we have some separately fitted lamp irons, and also you can just about see behind the first lamp iron you see, there's a separately fitted metal handrail by it, and it's like that with the other handrail on the other side as well. And that is a really nice touch because that adds to detail. We also have a builder's plate which is printed onto what I think is called the neck holders on the running board. And also you can see that metal handrail I was talking about just by the lamp iron. But that little builder's plate, that does add to detail, and it's nice to see that. Moving on to the pony truck, you can just about see that we do have some guard irons on the front. They are what looks like to be moulded onto the chassis block for it, but they're there, and it's a nice little bit of detail to have. Moving on to the cylinders, we have some nice rivet detail on them. What is interesting about the cylinders though is that you don't get any drain cocks to add on to them, because there's no holes drilled into them, and detail packs you get with the 8F, they don't come with any drain cocks, and this is something that Hornby have also done with their Black 5s and the unrebuilt Bullied Pacifics, although in that case they're moulded onto the cylinders. But with the Hornby Black 5s and the 8Fs, for some reason Hornby have never made any drain cocks for them, which there should be drain cocks under the cylinders. That is something that you could make yourself out of wire, but that is quite time consuming. So it would have been nice if Hornby had supplied some drain cocks with him, because that would add to the detail and all the more make it a bit more realistic somewhat. On the smoke box door we have rivets that go around the smoke box door, as you can see, a separately fitted handrail, a separately fitted lamp iron, the number plate 48154, and also we have separately fitted smoke box door darts, and also we have a printed shed plate on the smoke box door which reads 2F. We also have some rivets around the smoke box, and also we have, you can just about see some pipe work that goes around the smoke box as well. And we also have the outer steam pipes that attach onto the smoke box and the running board. We also have a nice chimney. Now you can fit a smoke generator unit in it if you want to, but that's not something I tend to do, so alas I'm not going to bother, but it's there for you to do if you want. We also have separately fitted metal handrails, and on this side we have some pipe work that is attached onto the smoke box and runs alongside the boiler just underneath the metal handrail, and that's just like the real thing. and that's a excellent piece of detail to have on the model. It's worth pointing out that we do have a bit of daylight just under the boiler, and that is really nice to have, because that is the case with the real ATF. You can see under the boiler and the under part of the chassis, and so that is quite nice. That is a good bit of detail to have. We also have some other detail. I'm not entirely 100% certain what it is. Is it washout plugs or something? I'm not 100% certain. But the detail I'm referring to are those blocks attached onto the boiler, and they fit on the running plate. Not too sure what it is, but it's there on the real thing, and it's there on the model as well, which is nice to see. We now move on to the moving parts, which is the valve gear, the link motion and the side rods, and that is going to be really good to see all that moving just like on the real thing. And it's all connected up properly and correctly as shown in the photos, and also there is some sanding gear by the drive wheels. Do be careful with it though, because it is a bit fragile. We then have the reversing lever, which I do believe is made out of metal. It usually is, and it's just like on the real thing, and it's in the right place as well. And also we have a bit of pipework that attaches onto the pipework that runs alongside the boiler and runs down onto the running plate, just like on the real thing. However, it should be painted, and it would have been nice if it was painted, but this is something that you can do yourself, so it's not really too much of a problem. We also have some pipework that runs around the boiler and runs downwards onto the running plate. Now, again, this pipework should be painted as well, but it's something you can do yourself. However, one little thing I do have to say about this pipework is that it's a little bit too chunky for me, because it should be a bit thinner than what it's shown here, because it just looks the same thickness as the pipework that curves around the boiler. The pipework that goes down onto the running plate should be a lot thinner. Not to mention the fact, in some angles I've seen, the pipework on this side of the boiler goes straight down onto the running plate. Others does have a slight curve like this one, as you can see in the photo. But that problem can be sorted using wire, by removing the plastic pipework and gluing wire in that place and painting it. And this is something I have actually done, but I'm not going to show you in the photos of this video. I may show you in the future, but there are one or two pictures on Twitter. Again, that's only a little minor nitpick, but it's still going to be pointed out in this video. Moving on to the boiler, we have the boiler bands and a dome. Separately fitted turn brass safety valves and a whistle, which in this case is the Stanier horizontal whistle. Glazing in the cab windows, like there should be, although two of the windows have left out as per the prototype. On the cab sides we have loads of rivets and even footsteps that have rivets on them. And also we have the running number printed on the side, 48151, crisply printed on the side, which is nice. And also we have that little star, which it's something to do with the locomotive's power, but it's there like on the majority of ATFs are, and it's crisply printed, and that is quite nice to see, and I do like that little feature. We've also got separately fitted cab doors, and you can also see a handrail on the back of the cab there. The cab doors do have little bits of detail on them, such as rivets and little hinge details, and that really is quite nice to see. It's good to see that bit of detail there on them. Then we also have the older style of tender connection, where the tender slots into, and also on the rear running board, as I like to call it, you can see a screwdriver to help get the body off, but also there are rivets there. Not something I expected to see, but it's there, and it adds to the detail. That's really good. We also have a separately fitted metal footplate, which is nice to have, and I do like the little texture feature it has on it. There's also loads of rivets on the cab roof, and we also have a cab roof vent. It doesn't open. On some models it does, some it doesn't. In this case it doesn't open, but what I do like about it is that it's moulded so that it's been opened, if you know what I mean, and that's a nice feature to have on the model. Instead of just moulded cab roof vents being closed, so it's nice to see some in this case that they're moulded as that they're open. Now we do have some detail in the cab interior that's been painted, such as a few dials and gauges and pipework and the regulator. However, it's all painted gold. Some of the cab detail you can't see in the photo, but it's been left out. In the case of the gauges and dials, they should be painted white. And also, the regulator, it should be painted a red or a silver colour. So it does slightly spoil the detail a bit to see it's all painted the same colour and some of the detail parts left out. But that is something I have since corrected, since taking these photographs for this review video. One thing I do have to say though, about the firebox, is that there's a hole in it, a gaping hole in it. And it's the same case with the LNER model and the other 8Fs. Now one thing that could be good about that is adding a glowing firebox in it, which is something I might look into for this model. However, the hole is a bit too big for that. You would have to fill the hole in with some plastic card or cardboard or whatever and drill a hole in it to the right size. And that's intriguing to see that there's a hole in the firebox door when on other models it doesn't happen, so I'm not too sure what's on this model, but that's just a little thing either way, but still. We then come to the other side of the model. On this side you can see that you don't have the pipework that runs alongside the boiler under the metal handrails. We do have some extra details though on this side though, on the running plate. You do have those bits of details I spoke about earlier that rest up against the boiler and attach onto the running plate, which I think I said were the washout plugs. Well, I did say that, but I think that's what they are, I'm not sure. And you do also have that chunky plastic pipework, but you do have some other boxy detail that has some pipework that runs out of them and onto the running board, as well as little handles, which you don't get on the other side, and so that's a nice bit of detail to have on this side of the model. The livery is also very well applied, and it's spot on, because it's not just detail that's important, but it's also the liveries, and they've got the correct shade of black, and I do like the matte finish on it. It really does look nice. There's nothing wrong with BR black locomotives, because I do like locomotives wearing BR black. I think it looks rather stunning, in my own personal opinion, that is. So with the locomotive now done, we can now come on to the tender. Now the tender also has a little bit of weight in it, not too much weight, but there is a little bit of weight in the tender, and that's something you see on most tender locomotives anyway, is that they put some weight inside the tender. On the face plate of the tender we have some storage cabinets, as well as the chute that you could put coal in it if you wanted to, and also we have the levers or handles, whichever you want to call them, and they transfer the water from the tender to the boiler. You also have a couple of rivets and what look like outer steam pipes on the front of the tender, or at least detail that's similar to it. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but maybe it is outer steam pipes, but not sure why they'd want to be on the tender though. And also on the tender buffer beam we have rivets and tender buffers. On the side of the tender we have separately fitted metal handrails. On the tender frame plates we have axle boxes and springs, and you also have those holes in the tender frames that you can see on the other side of the tender frames, and that is a good bit of detail to have. And also we have the footsteps as well. Just like it is on the locomotive, the BR black livery is well applied and it's the correct shade, because you wouldn't want this tender in any other shade of black. You also have the BR early emblem, which is the cycling lion, and it's crisply printed and well applied on the sides of the tender, and I do love the BR early emblem. On the back of the detail pretty much speaks for itself. You've got loads of rivets on the back of the tender. You've got lamp irons and also those little bits of detail that act act as steps in some ways so that the crew can climb up onto the water filler cap. And there's also some rivets on the buffer beams as well. And just like the buffers on the front, the buffers in the tender are sprung loaded and they're made of metal. Now on the back of the tender you also have these plates. You've got the builder's plate, you've got the plate that tells you how much water the tender can take, which in this case it's a 4,000 gallon tender. And also get a plate above the builder's plate that tells you about the LMS. Just thought I'd point those details out before I'd missed them out. You can't have enough rivets on this model. There's also some rivets on top of the tender, and you've also got the water filler cap, which doesn't open, but you've got a nice separately fitted handrail on that. And also you have some other detail on top of the tender, as you can see. Not entirely sure what it's there for, but it's there, and it adds to that detail and it looks good. Underneath the tender, the brake rods has already been added, as you can see in this photo here. And there's one piece of detail on the tender that we cannot leave out. It's the removable coal load, which you can add real coal in there if you want to, which I of course will be doing. Now we come on to the running performance of the Hornby 8F. As you can see in these video clips, the Hornby 8F ran faultlessly. No problems were encountered during the running, and it runs really smoothly, which is what we want, and it's what we expect from opening new models out of the box. We expect them to run smoothly. Now we come on to the loaded test run. The Hornby 8F has picked through its paces, hauling the chocolate and cream of coaches, being the Mark 1s. And this as always shows why the weight is important, especially with its own bends. So overall, while it's fair to say that the Hornby 8F itself is not perfect, because there are some detail parts that could be improved, it's nonetheless still a great model. And the majority of other details that you've seen on this model, as well as the running performance, not to mention all its capabilities, it really does make up for those things. For granted, this model is not going to get a 10 out of 10, but it's certainly not going to get a low score, because it's still a great model, despite what I have said about it, those few niggles, but it's still a model that's worth getting on your layout. In fact, I'd say it's worth having more than one on your layout, because they are great models. It may need some improvements, but the other detail parts make up for it. So that leads me on to the score. So I therefore rate the Hornby 8F 9 out of 10. This has been Class 47 Peter reviewing the Hornby 8F, and I'll see you again soon for the next review video. But until we meet again, take care and look after yourselves.